All right, let's see how it goes this time. Redoing this whole video again. It is 1 a.m. in the morning, Thursday morning. See if I can get this straight. So here we go. The reason for this is I've just started reading a book. Just finished the second chapter. So I'm only 2 chapters into this book. It was recommended by a friend of mine. This friend I had known from some Zoom meetings, and I physically met him at the San Diego Portal to Ascension conference I attended. I gave away 200 of my books, so he got one of them. He read it, and it seemed like he liked it. It's kind of what he said. It was fascinating anyway. But something particular caught his attention was when I described in my book, which I've also mentioned in my videos here, in my book, about after the walk-in, going to the movies with my parents, sitting in the seat next to a window, and if there's a storm out there, being pointing to a window saying, make a lightning bolt here and it strike, make a lightning bolt there and it strike. That particular one thing caught his attention.
And there'd be nights, so if we're driving up to town, and if it was a storm in the distance, I would make sure I was at a window, and I'd be pointing out the window going, make a lightning bolt here, and then one would strike. Make a lightning over here, one would strike. Make it over there, one would strike.
In another video, I talk about weather manipulation, several others. I talk about reality manipulation, specifically the weather in some instances, tornadoes, flood, rain events. In a later video, I even talked about how raining in high school, trying to rain out the baseball games during PE class and stuff, and it worked for the entire year. I did it always. So I talk several instances about that, but the lightning bolt specifically got him because that is on the cover of the book. This is the book. Dr. Jeffrey Mishlove was the guy that he had mentioned. The name of the book, PK Man. Forward by John Mack. Apparently John Mack is somebody big in the UFO community. I've heard his name before, but I really don't know anything about him. So I don't know all these people. But it's a true story. In the first 2 chapters, this Dr. Mishlove is a graduate student, it sounds like, and he's researching or looking into this guy named Ted Owens. I think Ted Owens has died since maybe in the 80s, 87, something like that, maybe. Could be completely wrong. But, I mean, it's 1 a.m. in the morning, and I just started reading the book, okay? So I think he's died. But this Ted Owens did the same thing, and with the lightning bolt striking, apparently, and that's what caught my friend's attention, and he suggested or said this book might interest me. So actually he suggested I email the author of the book. So I did, and just kind of cold introduced myself, and the gentleman said it was okay if I used his name because they were friends. My friend that I met and knew this author. So I said, okay. So I just cold emailed the author, and I don't expect a response. I don't expect him to read it. It's fine with me. But so I did. And I mentioned in there I bought a book, and which I did, and I'm reading it. But this Ted Owens character, I can see the resemblance to me. It is so freaking similar to me, and I get it. I completely get it. One of the specialties, apparently just in reading the two things about him, is weather manipulation and power, electricity kind of stuff. That's the cover with the lightning. I found it fascinating. Just in the first 2 chapters, Dr. Mishlove mentioned he didn't know whether this gentleman was causing, and this is a true story, if the gentleman was causing these phenomenon and these events, which this Ted Owens character seemed to have some kind of documentation saying he worked with the CIA and NASA with some of these abilities and different things. I don't know if it's true or not. I'm only 2 chapters in the book. But, yeah, I get that. But he used a word in there, like he didn't know if the Ted Owens was actually causing it or if it was precognitive data mining, something like that. And I get that too. I've thought of that myself for all my life. Pretty well, yeah, since a teenager, and the reality started responding since then. yeah, I thought the same thing. Am I causing this, or am I seeing the future and thinking it's me that is causing it? There's also another third part to that. So thinking that you're causing it. Second part, thinking you're seeing the future and believing you're causing it. I get that completely. Third thing is that you're crazy and this reality isn't real, because this stuff happens. It really, really happens. And how is this possible? Maybe I'm in a coma and this is all just a dream. That kind of thing, that this reality isn't real. It can't be real, because when you think of something... Oh, that was another thing. In the first two chapters, Dr. Mishlove mentioned something about thought forms. Hello? In my video that I reacted to Phil Gruber, that first session I attended or saw or signed up for with Phil Gruber, it was called Visitors to a Small Planet. In that video, I'm freaking out. And I said, I use the word thought forms. He used it in his first two chapters about thought forms. I'm like, I use that word thought forms, and I say, I don't even know that's a real word, but I'm using it. This is the way it works for me. It's like thought forms. He used that exact phrase in the same book with Ted Owens and thought forms. I thought, that's interesting. The other interesting thing with Ted Owens is he seemed really arrogant. And boy, do I get that. I have mentioned that in a past video, and I'll show a clip here.
I could easily become an arrogant, aggressive asshole with this kind of stuff. Trying to abuse it, abuse other people, abuse people's free will, do really bad things. It would be easy to do that, to go into that mode, to become arrogant with all this kind of stuff. And I would consider that a weakness and something I always have to watch out for, because it would be so easy, and it is easy, to become arrogant, and that's dangerous.
Boy, do I get that. I so get that. So easy. And I have fallen into that arrogance trap a couple of times, and I know it was so easy to be like that. It would be so easy to be like that. And it's a trap. It's a trap. It's a seductive trap. It's very seductive to become like that. Another part in the book was that he had encountered some gray beings that were bald. No hair, hairless. I've mentioned the same thing in my interview with Karen Swain. I didn't have it in any of my regular videos that I talked about that. But she specifically asked to describe some memories from before I was born, kind of thing. And I described those same entities like that. Ted Owens talked about how they had worked on his brain, manipulated him to do some of these kind of stuff, or maybe something like that. I'm not quite sure yet. I'm only 2 chapters in. It's 1 a.m. Something like that. And I don't know if you saw that in my video as well. On one of my older videos, I talked about in the haunted house that we lived in as we were young, floating through the roof of the house, and I remember it's like, at least on one occasion, there being beings there, and the images that were coming in my head, images and concepts, like telepathy is not words with me, it's images and concepts, it's pictures. But it's like going to the dentist. It's not fun now, but it will help you in the future. It's like they were doing something to me to help in the future. That's the only way I can describe it. I don't know. I really don't know. Apparently this gentleman, it sounds like he's been hypnotherapy, hypno-regressed or whatever. I've never done any of that. I don't know anything about it. I've heard of it. I know a lot of people do it. I've never done anything like that. But anyway, back to, yeah, I get the arrogance. I get the weather manipulations. I get the stuff with electricity, because me and electricity, wow. Speaking specifically of that, this friend of mine that I mentioned, he's a friend with this author, this friend of mine, so he called to recommend this book. The second part of it is, he's got a place in Aruba. The roof is being reworked. The roof is off of it. And supposedly this past Monday they were going to start reinstalling the roof. The problem is there's Tropical Storm Brett heading that away, and then followed by Tropical Storm Cindy. And he asked if I could do something so all the rain wouldn't hit his house. It seemed like that would be possible. I wasn't getting any pushback. I asked for that to happen. I wasn't getting any pushback, but the one image, I haven't talked to him about it. He did text me today saying he got some extra books that I sent him that he can give away. But I haven't talked to him about it. But there was one image in my head that there was a rain event, but it was necessary to keep a fire from spreading out of control. That's the only image I got in my head. That's weird. I don't know. I don't understand. Anyway, mostly okay, but there was at least one rain event to keep a fire from spreading. Whatever. I don't know. Anyway, while doing this in my house, talking about electricity, my electric stove top exploded. It really did. I'll see if I can find a picture. I've got a picture. I sent a picture to my family, just laughing, because it's an older stove with the elements, the metal elements. I'll find a picture and put it here. But I was blanching some green beans on the stove top, back left burner, and it was like zzz, that electric arcing sound. And it wasn't just one arc of electricity coming out. This was like sparks from a Roman candle shooting all the way to the vent hood above the stove. And it didn't stop. The breakers did not trip. It did not stop. It was constant streams of sparks and electricity flying through the air. And it didn't stop. I had to run outside as fast as I could and flip that breaker off. I mean, I wasn't about to touch the stove like that. And I would have to reach through the middle of all the sparks anyway, and the flames, no flames, just sparks and electricity to touch the stove. And I ain't touching it doing that. Electricity like that? No. Mean electricity? Sometimes it doesn't go well. Things happen. Anyway, my stove exploded. So anyway, but my brother said, after I texted to my family, my brother said he had an old glass top stove from my mother that was in working condition. She just wanted an upgrade. He had it in storage. So I was able to go the next day. I got rid of my old stove and put my mom's old stove to her, new to me, in its place. So. And I got to call an electrician to come and check the electrical outlet to make sure everything's okay and upgrade if it's needed, whatever, to check things out. So I've got to call an electrician for that. Yeah. Power sometimes, yeah, I get that. Electricity, yeah, I get that. Like the cover on the book, I get that. There are several other things similar to me and Ted. I was just in the first 2 chapters, but I do try to avoid the arrogance piece of it. Yeah, things keep running through my head. Be open, honest, gentle, and kind. Now, there was one video I did put out there a long time ago. The last time I really astral traveled, went out of body. I was at a job site up in Canada. I was in a hotel room, and I just fell out of my body, laying on the hotel bed, fell out of my body, started turning around town, and then decided to go up to the stars and do something completely different. I mentioned this in an earlier video somewhere, that I decided to do something different. So I went up to the stars and I decided to ask the universe a question. What is the meaning of life, the universe, and everything? Like in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, what is the meaning of life, the universe, and everything? I was expecting a big answer. Told me everything about myself, opened up every little detail about myself, and with images and things like, I'm okay the way I am. This is the way I'm supposed to be. These things are supposed to be happening this way. And then the last thing that came in is be kind to others. That I had, if there were 10 commandments, whatever, I had one kind of commandment. Be kind to others was my one. And that's in my first job right out of college, way back when, decades and decades and decades ago, however long. So hopefully that is one thing that helped keep me away from arrogance, at least a little bit, because that is a trap, and it's so easy to fall into that trap. I get it. I've fallen into it. I get it. Anyway, that's chapters 1 and 2. It's going to be interesting reading more. Thank you, my friend, for recommending this book. It's fascinating.